This is Headspace.
Okay, welcome everybody to Headspace by My Mama Done Told Me. I'm Jeff. I'm here with my sister Lauren. This is a hi. You can say hi.
Hi.
Yeah.
You kept talking.
I know.
So,
that's what I do.
Kind of what you do.
This is a segment of our podcast where we have the pleasure of sitting down with experts in their fields. We discuss what it takes to do what you do, why you do these things, what's helped you along the way, how you help other people, and just kind of open up some good conversation about what goes on in the mind of people that do impressive, important, or interesting things. So that's what we do. Again, I'm Jeff. I'm here with my sister Lauren, and instead of mom today, we have, well, I guess you both are moms.
Yeah.
So that's good. We're here to talk to someone who, this is my first time meeting her in person, but you have been very influential in the life of people around me.
This is true.
So I kind of feel like I know and love you already because my wife and her sister-in-law or best friend are very close with you. And so this comes straight from your website. So I'm going to do some introduction and then I'll let you tell me where I went wrong. Okay. She is a facilitator of spaces, a gatherer of community, a collaborative practitioner of somatics. I'm interested in what that is, and movement through psychoeducation, mindfulness practices, and a whole bunch of other really cool techniques. Which I hope we talk about some of those techniques today, if you have time. You're helping people remember themselves and to feel better. In my world, the infamous Lora McCarville. Hi, Laura.
Hi.
Welcome to Headspace.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being willing to have us here in your studio and kind of rearrange your furniture and set up all of our stuff.
I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're here.
We're glad to be here. When we were texting about doing this, I said, I'll put together some talk points and I'll send them to you and, so you can kind of prepare. And your response to me was, and I quote, "The content will be determined by the now." So
I love that.
I didn't come up with it. I'm sure I read that along the way in my life, but that's what.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
So
here we are.
Let's just start by telling us a little bit about you, what you do, and what I got wrong in that in the introduction.
Well, I don't think you got anything wrong.
Okay.
Right? So my name's Laura, and it's interesting because when you were reading through that stuff, I was like, oh yeah, and yeah. But I've been at this for long enough that I've gathered quite a few tools. I started as a special education teacher, so that's like my formal training is in education.
Okay.
And that took me down a path of recovery from an accident that happened in the classroom. I was assaulted by a student, and that took me into yoga to do a lot of healing. And it works. The movement works and the studies work, and that's kind of where I started. Then there came a point, I guess, on the journey where I was using a lot of those tools and they were no longer working. And when that happened, I redirected myself to go, okay, what am I missing here? So
the tools weren't working that you were educated on, or the tools that you were doing in yoga and things weren't working anymore?
Yeah. So what I found was my son was working with anxiety, and I was using a lot of things that I learned in yoga that had worked for me to the place in which I needed them to work. But I was dropping him off at school, and I looked over and I did the thing of, the teaching of the lesson of the yoga stuff and the things we've learned.
Yeah.
And he looked back at me he just gave me this look, and I thought, oh, you're going to war, and I'm telling you to look for positive things. This is not, I see, I'm missing
You're taking the wrong weapon to the fight.
Yeah, I didn't even think he was really going to a fight. I didn't understand what was happening inside his nervous system. Now everyone talks nervous system, and it's pretty common. At that time, it wasn't. And I knew I needed to find other methods to work with him.
Yeah.
And as our kids do, what I discovered was lots of incredible methods that also worked for me.
Mm-hmm.
And we were able to do a bottom-up approach. And what I was working was more of a top-down, working with this part of the brain, the top part of the brain. And he was in that survival mode of life.
So is that where you feel like what you do now, is it more directed toward people and that are maybe struggling coming from the bottom up as opposed to top down, as you said?
Yeah.
Is that kind of where your specialty lies, or do you?
Yes.
Okay.
So I'm not a licensed mental health practitioner. That's not what I do. We don't sit and talk about the past and things that are going on. Somatic practitioner is kind of an interesting way to describe, I work with the body and understanding how we sense ourselves.
Okay. And that's, I'm sorry to interrupt, but that's somatics?
Yeah, that would be
I'm uneducated on the word.
Yeah, I would say somatics is a general term. A lot of people use it
Okay.
as a general term for the body.
Okay.
I would say also most of yoga is a somatic practice. It can be if we're being guided into sensation in the body, but not everything is body. I would say for if we go back to my son, he could definitely sense where anxiety was happening. So it's not just sense it. What else can we do? So that's where the bottom up methods come into play.
Okay.
Yeah.
Starting where someone is already dealing with something big, and how do we get you into living again?
Yeah, more self-led.
Okay.
Right? So self-led means my heart, my oracle, this thing of me that's not my body, that's not my sensations, my thoughts, feelings, the things that have happened to me is leading life.
Okay.
So more of maybe I would say self-sourcing, oh, there I am. Okay. And from that place I can access my life.
I'm processing everything that you said, so I'm not hopefully it doesn't look like I'm looking at you going, I don't understand. But I'm just trying to make sure.
Turning.
Yeah, I'm just trying to make sure I'm following with all that. So mindfulness, you mentioned that a few times, and I know it's on your website a bit. It's kind of a buzzword right now. A lot of things that go on in this world, sort of for better or for worse, become buzzwords. And that is what it is. Sometimes it's good because you are bringing attention to things that are important, but in other ways it feels like it kind of cheapens things. Unfortunately, I don't know if you feel similar to that. Okay, so mindfulness, the buzzword, I hear it thrown out a lot. And Lauren, maybe you know this already and you're not curious of the same thing, but I wonder if you can maybe for the layman, what exactly is mindfulness? I mean, I know what it means to be mindful of your surroundings, let's say, right? Just, I know what's here. I know who's in my present company. So some ways I need to maybe adjust based on what's going on around me. Is that what mindfulness is? Is there can you maybe explain that a little bit in your experience and in your own words, what mindfulness really is?
Sure. Because everyone's being told they need to be mindful. And what does that mean? So mindfulness in definition would be present moment awareness with compassion. In the West, what's been left out is compassion.
Yeah.
So you can be really present and still be an asshole. So to yourself or others and be like, I am being mindful. And it's okay, so how do I meet this present moment with loving awareness, with compassion, with discernment?
Right.
So it's not just the awareness of the present moment. What's tricky, if you look at the hand model of the brain, right? So if you tuck your thumb under and And we'll use it more as if you could try on some of the stuff I'm going to say from the sense of like philosophy, even more than science. So like when I'm teaching little kids, or I'm in a school teaching, or in corporations teaching, or one-on-one, right? Here's our hand model of the brain. This part of the brain right here, this prefrontal cortex, is where like mindfulness would access.
Okay.
So that's like, oh, I'm in the present moment. I can use wise discernment. If I run, this part of the brain also goes into the future, and it goes into the past, and you can go, oh, here's my values. I'm going to assess. Yes, here I am. And then we have this other part of the brain, the bottom brain. That's the part I work with, right? This is where our survival is. Our fight, flight, freeze. This, now little kids will be like, this is the amygdala. And I'm like, okay, I didn't know that. So this part of the brain is like an old Ford truck.
Okay.
This part of the brain is like a Prius. They don't change parts out very well, right? So what happens in mindfulness is, what I was finding is I would be teaching Jordan mindful activities and ways to stay mindful, but his brain was moving into fight, flight, freeze responses. It might come back online and that it'd flip its lid, right? And so
you were trying to put Prius parts in a Ford.
That's right.
Okay.
And most of us are.
Okay.
Most of the time. So my clients across the board, in schools, working with kids, I was like, well, this isn't working with myself, because we're coming, I saw the biggest shift probably around 2016, where I was like, oh, I really see now this isn't working. We need different tools for our culture and what's happening. And so that's what took me down studying bottom-up approaches and really understanding how the nervous system can influence our access to mindfulness.
Okay.
Right?
So what are some of those things that us were doing wrong? I mean, what's the, maybe not wrong, but the wrong tool for the wrong job? Like, is it, and how did you figure out what those things were?
And they're not wrong tools, right? They're absolutely necessary tools in living.
Right.
When we're in high states of turmoil, when we experience, childhood traumas, when we have events that happen, our brain is like kind of tricky in that way, right? So mindfulness tools work great. And once you're able to access it and you can keep bringing yourself online to stay here, it doesn't mean we're always in the present moment. That'd be ridiculous. But it would mean we could meet ourselves again and again, versus where we're in those high states of chronic turmoil and stress. Some of those bottom-up approaches are like yoga nidra would be a bottom-up approach, hypnosis. I'm trained in rapid resolution therapy, and I'm a clinical hypnotherapist. So in that way, I work bottom up, working with more deep state.
I want to talk about that. No, keep going. We'll get back there.
Like deeper states. Right now with the psychedelic movement, that would be a bottom up approach. So working with these other methods, not that talk therapy is bad. It's just that what people are finding is that talk therapy wasn't getting the resolution to access the tools that the therapist was handing out.
Okay. Understood. Yep. That makes total sense to me. Rapid resolution therapy.
Yes.
What is that? So
that's a method of that I was trained in about 8 or 9 years ago by Dr. John Connolly. And it's a bottom-up approach. So it uses hypnotic, I don't even want to say hypnotic. It works more in the way of like, can I find myself connected to self, to source, through symbols, through visualization, through sensation. So some of the somatic things. And then we have different ways in which we reframe how the brain is working with information. Okay. So if I said to you, what did you wear a year ago today?
I could tell you exactly what I was wearing
Probably
because
right
it's the exact
that.
same thing. But
If I said to
I
you.
I might not be the right person.
So
No,
most
I
people
follow.
don't recall,
Yeah,
right?
Yep.
Because so the brain filed it away to the past.
Mhm.
But what we work with is like some of those open files.
Okay.
We have techniques, methods that
Mhm.
help to file it away so you can access the present moment.
Okay.
Right?
So it's through. So when you say things like through sensation and
Symbols.
symbols, what are we talking about? Like, are we talking?
Mm-hmm.
You said that you're not necessarily interested in going back and just like reliving all the traumas and things like that. So what are we trying to get back to? What are we trying to understand about ourselves? Like, what are those symbols? What symbols am I looking at to connect with what?
Well, let's
try.
Can we try something on?
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So, if you just take a moment and close your eyes, and if you could recall a time you were in nature and you felt a sense of awe or wonder, or like, whoa.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you got it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then you might even sense that in your body or outside your body somewhere. And if not, that's okay too. Good. In that moment, Mother Nature was showing you a mirror of who you are, of your true essence, of this thing that animates you. And it was saying, like, just as you are, whole and complete and perfect in timing. And in that moment, when you felt that uplift or that awe, that you didn't say like, oh, if you could have been a little more pink, or it'd been nice to have a better tree, just as it is. That's you too. That's you too. Now, things have happened to you, you can open your eyes. Things have happened to you, they've happened to me, to your body. We've had things, thoughts, feelings, experiences, but nothing has ever touched that thing of who you are.
So that makes more sense to me now.
Yeah, very much so.
So and once we take, and even in that moment, now you have an internal resource, meaning as you're moving through your day from this point forward, you can take a pause and you can remember that place in nature and that feeling, that sensation, and go, oh yeah, that's right. This is who I am too. And Mother Nature is reminding us all the time. So there's our symbol right there.
So what does that do with, one of the things that I deal with is things like, okay, so anxiety. So my life has been a little bit crazy in the last year or so. And, anxiety has gotten pretty bad for me. So the way that my body, and I know I'm not alone in this one, but the way that my body shows that is physical discomfort, right?
Totally.
So I'm in a pretty good place today, this week. So I'm not feeling it quite as bad as I had been. But so I guess my question would be, so our brains are so intimately connected to our bodies.
In some cultures, they wouldn't even separate it.
Yeah.
Okay,
right? They don't have
fair.
two different words for it.
Yeah.
Wow.
And in a lot of ways, I think that's great. But
yeah.
But I don't know if that, I know that it was only a 30-second practice. I don't know if that would have been as effective 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Because of the physical. I mean, when we did that just now, I felt, the in my chest. And I'm not saying that couldn't have helped. And maybe there's some prolonged things and you can maybe speak to that. But how do we, is that the same kind of work to get through that?
There's more.
Okay.
Yeah. So with anxiety in your body that you're feeling, if we look at it like, imagine a zebra is eating grass and a tiger comes along. What does the zebra need to do? Run, right? And I wouldn't yell at the zebra to smile. And I wouldn't say, hey, have you tried meditating? Right?
Yeah.
I would say, run. Right. And
there are some real world reactions that our body needs to do naturally in order to survive.
Okay, so there are very, very, just very rare cases that our life is actually in a threat where we're being chased by a tiger. I mean, we'd have to bring the tiger into the room, right? But we receive an email, a call, something happens with our kids, and our brain perceives it as, oh, you're gonna die, right? And so it goes into action. It starts to move, except that we don't go anywhere. So anxiety is a incredible, accurate, important survival response. And so we go, oh, here's that revvy feeling. I'm feeling sick in my stomach. Right. It's anxiety. I own it, pathologize it, and don't know. But really, what we're working with is like, oh, it's an appropriate response. So when I work with people then who are working, and most people are with that anxiety, then typically the anxiety is connected to an image, a little mind movie, a story, a thought pattern. And it's that thing then that we file away. So what happens when the zebra escapes from the tiger? What does it do? It goes back to eating grass. And so when it goes back to eating grass, I don't say, if I said to the tiger, like, you want to go talk about the thing? And zebra would be like, I'm eating grass. Because zebra's back to the present moment.
Right.
Our brain doesn't do that.
Right.
Our brain can ruminate and think and
what about next time? What about
when it happens again? When it
right. So what I do is we take those files that are open and we shift them in the brain so that the brain gets the message that you got the job done, that you survived that tiger being, chasing you, so that you can be accessed to the present moment, which is that self-sourced energy.
Because it's pointless or it's not pointless. It would be harmful to get rid of the feeling of anxiety,
right? Because it's a,
and it's impossible to do it,
right?
And we need it,
right?
In a lot of ways. But the goal here is to reset.
And it's funny, like we need it, but probably not at the point in which we have. It's like life has evolved so quick, but our brain hasn't evolved at that same speed. So we're still getting messages. Like I said, an email from the boss feels like a tiger, but it's not an actual tiger. Right. But we're perceiving it because it is today's threat. So we're literally going into, I'm going to die. Right. But you're actually not going to die. It's a stressful scenario, but the brain codes it as dead.
Yeah.
Get right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's doing its job, right? It's just
at the wrong time.
It's just not optimal,
right?
It's doing its job
for situations that don't warrant it.
Yeah,
maybe.
I mean, like, philosophically, right?
Yeah.
But so how do we update the brain?
Right. So is it similar to EMDR?
Okay, so it's not, because EMDR has a lot more of like, can you tell me how that happened?
Oh,
tell me about the thing.
It's digging into
it's digging
into the trauma instead of.
But it is EMDR is a bottom up approach typically.
Okay.
Brain spotting, which is an offshoot of EMDR, I would say is more accurate to that bottom up. It's not that I'm not hearing what happens to people. I'm not but we're working. I then make a collaborative plan to move forward,
right?
And what we do to resolve it,
right? And I would guess that there is a time and a place to dig into some unresolved things, and there are professionals. I mean, I know I've recently started seeing a therapist who I absolutely love, and he's been wonderful in my progress. But sometimes you do have to go back and talk, or we have gone back and talked about some of those things. And you would agree though that it's a question, not a you're going to agree that that can have a place and have an importance. It's kind of two sides of getting yourself back into life. Is that sort of your
It's so tricky because I think I refer to therapists and therapists refer to me, and I say yes and right. Like I do think we can go back. What happens is we kind of fall back when we go revisit it. If we're not resourced to our self energy, if we're not able to see that we survived it, then sometimes it's reactivating and we're actually, and some people are saying things, and I am sad to say this, that I've been in environments where it has been said, like you didn't cry enough the first time that horrible thing happened. You need to cry harder. You need to feel it more. Right. There's a lot of stories that happen and get perpetuated in those environments or practices that I tend to think like, I think we're causing some
under the
harm.
Assumption that you never really processed this the first time you went through it. You blocked it out. So let's you back there.
Again.
Yes.
And I feel like I agree with you that to me doesn't feel right. And I've had conversations with my wife a lot about, she's gone through some stuff and, throughout her life, and she has, basically said, I don't want to go back through all that again. I've tried that. I've done that. I need to figure out how to
move forward
now.
Yeah.
I've dealt with those things.
Yeah.
I don't always want to go back there. But how do I get myself?
I'm with that too.
Yeah. How do I get it to where I can, that all happened great. And it might be having an effect on how I'm feeling and how I'm responding and reacting now. But I have to deal with myself now and the things around me now. So how do I, find my way forward instead of just continuing to look back and saying, why did this happen? Okay, it happened.
Right.
That sucks. And now
I think a lot of blame is also placed on that, where it's like almost like there's so much focus on the past traumas and stuff and not enough focus on the moving forward. Because it's hard to, because you get stuck in that past. And if you like, not that it's not important, but if you kind of move that aside and move forward, that seems, I don't know much about it, but like Jeff said, I just recently started going to a new therapist as well. And we're kind of going through that past thing as well right now. So this is very interesting. I'm very interested in this.
Okay, so how, if we just, you don't have to like even agree, but if you just try on the philosophy of like maybe the brain just didn't get the message that you survived. So going back isn't the part that's could cause harm. It's that if we could go back and let the brain know you survived, then you can easier access this present moment. Like what we all are wanting to do is be in the present moment so that we can be connected to the self, to the people we're with, right? We get this. Sometimes we're unable to because how the brain is working. But then the blame part happens, like I should just be present, or we start to blame ourselves for those things. So things that happen. So it's good, and there are methods to help us get the message that you survived, and that's not happening now.
Right.
Yeah.
And you are of the belief that that you get that if you're able to basically, for lack of a better term, convince yourself that I survived, or convince your brain, the part of your brain that doesn't listen to the forward part of your brain. That we're okay. We survived that. We're still eating the grass, and we're, not to say that the tiger's not going to come at us again. So that doesn't mean we shouldn't learn anything from it. At least that's my thought. There is, a certain amount that I think should be said about preparing yourself for what could be. But I also think that's probably a dangerous road to go too far down. But but if I'm hearing you correctly, if we can accept the fact that we survived the things that have happened, I mean, that
So I'm going to just move it a little, be more specific. So it's not about accepting it. This is where like the methods that I haven't shared with you are like, these are where the methods come in, where I go, oh, we're going to use this creative thing where we reframe for your brain how it's seeing the picture. Or depending on what we're working with, I have lots of different things. So you're never having to convince yourself. That's on me to know the method that I'm going to use, that we use, so that your brain gets the message. So not at no point is there okay, you survived that. It's a whole different, like sometimes we snap our fingers on, sometimes we say weird words, we take the picture and make it different. There's all these fun, creative, we're laughing a ton in accessing that.
Because in a lot of ways, you're essentially, I don't want to use the word you're tricking your brain, but in some ways you kind of are like having different responses to whatever you're feeling, and your brain will eventually like create those new pathways to associate, I guess.
Sure.
Is that somewhat on whatever the thing is, the bad thing, the bad things, the years of bad, the years of discomfort, whatever it may be, those things lead you to have a certain feeling in reaction to the world around you, whether that's just being, if being in a small room was somehow a trigger to me, well, this might not be the room to be in, right?
And that's if you're conscious of those things.
Yeah.
We're not even talking yet about like what's underneath it, the part that we're the unconscious, the subconscious, and
that's what's so frustrating to me about the brain and mental health and all of that, because if we go back to what I originally was saying, I get a pit in my stomach when I'm anxious, and one of the things that I try to work on is like, okay, let's let my body know. Let's still do the same thing, do the fun things, do the enriching things in my life, even though I'm feeling that, and accept that, okay, I'm feeling those things, and I'm gonna basically tell my brain, that's a pointless feeling to be giving me. So in this current scenario, so I'm still going to do the things, and eventually my brain will say, oh, I don't need to be this anxious about this right now because it's not currently happening, and it's not, that thing is not as impactful as I'm making it. But I get so frustrated because that part of my brain, I feel so disconnected from. You know what I mean? Where I can write notes for what I'm going to do here tonight. I can learn how to work these computers and these microphones. I can learn how to do my job. Those are things that I can consciously do. I can say, if I drive the speed limit, I'm less likely to get into either legal trouble or into an accident. Those are logical things. But the part that maybe it's just I'm so out of touch with, or because it's so much harder to communicate with, that's saying, no, I'm going to give you this feeling, or I'm going to give you this response or whatever, regardless of what the conscious Jeff is
so thinking. It's like you're doing something fun. You're like, I'm with my family. There's no tiger in the room. Right. And then here comes the pit.
Yes.
Yeah, got it.
Yeah. So that's where I get super frustrated. And it's, and a lot of times we'll say, we'll spend some time trying to do the things that we know we're quote unquote supposed to do. Let's stay active. Let's eat right. Let's, and it feels like, it might give me a temporary, but to me, it feels like a distraction as opposed to a repair.
Yeah.
So that's where I struggle.
Can we try something? Do you want to try? Are you open to trying something?
Anything. Yep.
Okay. So when you said that pit in your stomach, you're like, just ignore it. You said, I just ignore it and do the fun things and do the things we're doing and just ignore it.
Yeah.
Does that seem to work?
No.
Okay. So sometimes maybe?
I feel like I do get distracted. Yeah.
Okay. So, and so we're just going to try something on. If you were to take your hand to where you feel that, is it like because I saw you where you touch like
right where,
underneath your rib, kind of like
right in my
there.
rib, like between my ribs, above my stomach. Yeah.
And like if you drew a circle around it, you could draw a circle around. You could be like,
I could grab the spot that doesn't feel good. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I'm following. You're doing great describing it, and it's incredible that you're able to talk back to it. Yeah. That's a really strong method that's taught, because the brain then goes like, okay, I got you. But let's try something else. Do you want to?
Yeah.
Okay, so if you close your eyes, and we'll only. This is incredible because anyone listening then could also do this along with us. So if you just put your hand there and instead of pushing it away, and we're not going to be with it very long, could you just try saying thank you? Just like, oh, thank you.
Like audibly tell it?
Yeah. Like, thank you.
I don't want to tell it thank you. I don't like it.
I know.
Do it anyway.
I know. It's okay. It's okay that you don't like it. Do we know why it's communicating? If you could go back to our brain stuff, at some point it got a message that there was danger. So it's sending you a message here of like, there's danger, alert. Okay, so if a fire alarm was going off in a building, are you like, it's like, okay, I'm just going to respect the fire alarm. So maybe you don't say thank you and you just go like, I hear you. Does that feel better?
Yep.
Like, I hear you and I'm listening.
Yep, I hear you and I'm listening.
Good. And then just notice that you're breathing. Don't change your breath, and instead just let your breath be just another way to like self-acceptance. Like, just as I'm breathing is enough. We know that because you're awake. So I'm breathing, and that's here too. Okay, so there's a couple things we can do here. If you were to ask it how old it is, see if you hear a number. And if you don't, that's okay. But maybe you did.
No.
Okay. And then can you see, and that's working too. So ask, no, let's do this instead. Is there a color that comes up with it?
Pink.
Okay. So if you could then take your hand like you were taking that pink spot, not, and your hand's a magnet, and you're going to take it outside of yourself, like, and you're pulling it away, and then your hand is pulled away from you, and then place it in your lap, palm up. Good. Yeah, just like that, you're doing great. And in your hand now is that pink thing. Can you see it in your hand? Yeah. Okay. And its best intention from a neurological standpoint, it turned on at some point to warn you that there was danger. Are we in agreement with that?
Yep.
So its intention wasn't to cause suffering. Okay, now, can you tell this pink thing how old you are? Just say your age out loud.
39.
And now say, I'm 39.
I'm 39.
I'm 39. That's right. And now I want you to remember that time when you were in nature and you felt a sense of awe. Good. And that pink thing is in your hand. And now we're going to take it across your body, and imagine you're setting it down on the right side across your body on the ground. And now it's on the ground. And now I want you to move it across the room, so it's like further away.
Can I throw it?
Yeah, we can. I know you're so mad at it. I know you're mad at it. But just move it further away from you.
Okay. Over toward her.
Don't give it to
No,
me.
like over me, but behind me.
Okay.
Maybe even outside.
Okay.
Okay. So you're here and that's there. You're here and that's there. And it's little. And now move it further away and make it even smaller. And move it further away and make it even smaller. Good. And now I want you to say, so what? Who cares?
So what? Who cares?
So what? Who cares? And it wants your attention. But there's danger of what? So what? Who cares? Can you say back to it?
So what? Who cares?
Kind of like a teenager. So what? Who cares? Do it one more time, but like
so
a teen.
What?
Who cares? Good.
So what?
Who cares? Good. Okay. Yeah, that's right. Okay, open your eyes up. Nice. That thing, even resistance is holding, right? There's a book called Tea and Cake with Demons, but it's really like it's over there and you're here. And that thing over there, as much as you want to, did something at some point in your life that caused you to take action and survive. And you might have been really little, you might have been in your 20s, who knows when it happened. It it just turned on. And so its best intention was to keep you safe. It just kept turning up the volume. And we could resist it. We could say like, I'm so mad at you. But if we maybe change our relationship to anxiety, because that thing of like, we're hardwired for it.
Right.
Just like we're hardwired for a few other emotions. Right? So how we relate to the thing is more valuable. So like, so what? Who cares? I get it. You're over there. Okay. Right. And maybe one day you'll pour it to you and be like, okay, tell me what's up. But right now, a little more compassion for yourself and for that thing that's trying to send the signal.
Yeah. It's funny when we like talk to it and whatnot, like you asked me if I knew how old it was or if it told me how old it was.
Or if a number came up.
Right. Or yeah. What immediately came to my head was, no, it's always been there. But it's not always awake, or it's not always the same, or it's a different one. There's one from my past that was very blue. Yeah, I appreciate that you brought up colors, because it was I definitely see things in those, and it was very blue, the old one, but I haven't heard or seen or from that one in a very, very long time, which I'm grateful for. The other one, which was very recent, the one that we just threw out the window, is very young.
Yeah.
And I mean, although I did very much imagine throwing it out the window, she's still here.
Yeah.
And so that's
did you hear, you just heard young, she's very young.
I just know that's when she showed up.
Oh, when you were very young.
No, it was not long ago.
Oh.
Yeah.
And you say she. Yeah. So this is where mindfulness comes in, but not mindfulness, the part that I love to teach, which is compassion. So I'm also hearing like the suffering that it's bringing, and like the sadness or the grief that's here with it.
Yep.
And when you say young, like it's new, then it's like, oh, honey, how would you treat something young and new? You would treat it with a little more like, okay, I see you're here. This is hard. So then it becomes a habit of like, or an awareness of how we're holding that self-talk, right?
Right. Yeah.
So sometimes we pull it away and do that because like, so what? Who cares? I get it. And sometimes we need to hold it and put it on an altar and say, hey, honey, I get it. You're really suffering. This is hard. This is really hard. Also, I'm 39. I'm resourced. I have tools. I can handle it. Because if that anxiety pink ball is driving your bus, then different decisions get made.
Right.
And sometimes it just needs to know that, like, I'm here.
Right.
Or maybe you invite it to go to that place in nature and go chill for a bit.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really powerful stuff. And I can tell that just doing these practices, while it might not obviously be like necessarily like an immediate, like,
Sure,
I'm no longer dealing with it. All right. You know, like, I can see how that can definitely, with practice, be something that could help me get like a handle on that, or at least some more acceptance of that. Because, you know, you mentioned that and I know that I say things about like I was ignoring it. I don't think that I've ever truly been able to ignore it when it's there. No, you know, it's not in, you know, I can't. How do you ignore the child screaming in your ear, you know?
Yeah, some people drink, and some people use really, you know, you're not doing meth.
No.
Right. So they're doing great, Jeff.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, though, I mean, that sensation is the reason why people turn to things to numb it out.
Yeah.
You know, we have, you know, you're not, it just, so, okay, so you're arguing and engaging and trying to push it away, but that's not the worst strategy. It's just not very effective.
Yeah.
Sadly, meth is probably more effective, just not for the long run. If you're if your only goal is to drown out the sensation in that voice, you know, it's again, it's not optimal.
Right.
So what we're working with is like, how do I relate to myself?
Right.
And I would guess that it's showing up because some things in life have shown up.
Yep.
So here it is.
Yeah.
Okay, these are difficult times, and how am I going to meet myself and my response to it?
And it's interesting too. Like, I wasn't doing the exercise; I was just kind of observing.
Did you almost say exorcism?
No,
it kind of was in a way. You pulled it out.
But when you asked him to pull it out and to ask it things and talk to it, I felt emotional about talking to that, because, you know, I'm thinking in my head of things that in my life, you know, my thing, I didn't participate, but I was thinking in my head, like, some of the things that I could pull out of myself and what kind of things that they would tell me, or what kind of things they, you know, I would say to it. And I got emotional thinking about that because of the fact that it is trying to help.
It is.
You know, even though it's not helping at the moment, even though it may not be something, you know, it may be firing at a time that it shouldn't be, or maybe, I don't even want to say shouldn't be, but it's not really very necessary at the present moment. Like, there's still,
can we turn the fire alarm off now?
Right. Yeah. But it still made me emotional to think about being angry with it or something, because it's a part of you that's trying to help you, you know, and like, even if it's something that came up in your childhood that's like you've been holding on to, and it just comes up whenever something makes you feel uncomfortable, or whenever something happens that makes you anxious or whatever, it still brings you back to that, like, innocence of the thing, you know, whatever it is.
Right. Yeah, I can definitely see that.
Yeah.
And when you source yourself first, so like we did the thing with nature, you know, when you say your age, I don't know how that helps. If you felt that, sometimes I've been in this work, and that part was like, wait, you're that old? Like, I didn't know we had made it to, you know, that age. I didn't know you were that age.
Right.
And so then it even has an opportunity to, or we have an opportunity to, for lack of better words, like, step into that place of reparenting, or going back in time and doing that cool thing of time traveling and being like, you did such a good job of surviving that. I'm so proud of you. You know? How the brain files like things together, right? So when we have an experience, like, I don't know what's happening this year, but something's going on, the brain files like things together. My example is, one time I was on retreat with my boyfriend, and he had to go down to the beach to help his sister, and I found myself getting jealous. And then pretty soon I was thinking about this high school boyfriend, how he cheated on me. And I was like, what? I was like, what is happening, right? I know my boyfriend's not going to cheat on me with his sister. But it was like, why am I thinking about this man, this kid? And so then I remembered, oh, jealousy. My brain showed me every time I had ever been jealous. To the and so what happens when those things happen super fast on the subconscious place is then we're responding not from the present moment, but from every time we've ever felt it. Now, if I wasn't aware of that moment, had Nathan walked back in, I'd been like, what are you doing helping your sister? Right? I would have responded from a jealous place.
Yeah.
10 times greater than the event actually was.
Right.
And so the thing that's happening now could be worthy of the pink thing. And it could be activating, oh, I felt this before. Last time I felt this really bad thing happened. And now I'm responding as if this really bad thing's going to happen instead of responding to the present moment.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's huge. I think that, I know I've just in the last 30 minutes have learned a lot about how I can, the relationship that I can have with it, because that's like, I haven't really considered that before. I knew it was there. I've talked to it. I've said, your point things to it. Yeah. You're pointless right now. You're pointless. You know, like there is no reason for you to be here right now. You know, but if I imagine that little pink thing as like
it's kind of heartbreaking to think like that you talk to yourself like that.
Yeah. Because it is yourself. And
like it is you. Yeah. And when you mentioned like being a little bit emotional about that, like imagine it as like a cute little like cartoon figure
with watery eyes.
Yeah,
like, why are you yelling at me?
Yeah, why are you? Yeah, like
I'm not pointless.
I'm not pointless. Yeah,
I have a job.
I'm trying to do it.
I'm doing my job. I have one job and I'm doing it. I just wish there was a dial instead of a
okay.
On
So
and off
sometimes
switch.
you can just imagine a dial and turn down the dial. Like what you're saying is really important, and I want to listen to you. But right now, I'm having so much fun. We're going to turn that dial down.
You're
Sometimes it's
too loud.
Shh, honey, I got it. Yeah. Sometimes we can shrink it in our mind, just shrink it. And you could flick it away, but you could shrink it and just move it over there.
We'll talk later.
Yeah. We keep
visualization is so powerful.
Our brain really works with visualization. Symbols is, I mean, Jungians work, like we really work with symbols. This is why like your logo, motto, you know, like think about what comes up. So making it that little pink guy. Oh, here he is. Okay, you're here again.
Right.
We're hanging out today, I guess.
Yeah.
We're gonna silence you for a little bit.
Yeah. Okay, so we could probably go on all night.
We could.
I know we've got. I haven't paid you for this, so we'll get the. We'll move on. Is there anything that you want to, or that you would be willing to, for just day in, day out, to us, to our listeners, that you consider to be a healthy mindfulness or a practice that maybe you recommend, just as the general public does, that you can kind of, maybe a tip that helps you, or that you've seen help a lot of people that...
Okay, so since I would say that place in nature is a great place to self-source. Right. So if you were to wake up in the morning and remember that place, that would be incredible. Really impactful if you take a picture from your childhood and put it on your altar or your nightstand, and you wake up every morning and you say, hey, baby, you did a good job. You got the job done. I'm really proud of how you survived that stuff.
Yeah.
You know, that changes your relationship with yourself dramatically.
Yeah.
We begin to use a more...
It's okay.
Yeah, because what happens then is we get to do the thing that we didn't get to hear, right? We come up with these stories. When I was little, before seatbelts, I was climbing over the back seat to the front seat, and I stepped on my dad's finger, and he was like, you smashed my finger. I was like 4. Yeah. And then, you know, years passed. Every time I looked at his finger, I thought, God, I can't believe I did that. I was like in my 40s, and I was like, oh, Dad, I can't believe I smashed your finger. And I was like, wait,
why am I
I couldn't have done that.
Right.
No one checked that thought for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I had carried this thought, felt guilty about the harm I'd caused him for years until I said it out loud. There's these stories we are carrying because no adult came in and said, hey, honey, no, you're thinking about this wrong. Actually, this other thing is happening and this has nothing to do with you.
Right.
Yeah. So then we get to go back in time and be like, oh, that's that thought, that thing. Mm-hmm. No.
Yeah.
Let me tell you how it really is, babe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Well, thank you. I can't thank you enough for sitting with us and letting us into your space for this and helping me reevaluate some of the things that I'm dealing with, and hopefully our listeners are going to get something out of this too. But if they don't, I don't care, because this was fun. This was good.
Cares?
This was good for
so
me.
What? Who cares?
Yeah. So what? Who cares?
Well, thank you for having me. Your intentions are incredible, and what you're putting out is really important. So thank you both for being here and being so vulnerable and open.
Yeah. Well, the ladies in my life were right. You are a very inviting energy, and I appreciate that about you. Do you have anything else you want to put out in the world? Is there anything that you want to maybe promote? Is there or anything that you want to say to our vast amount of listeners?
You can find me at loramccarville.com, my website, and if you email me or send me a message on those social media platforms, those can be tagged too, then I could send you a link to my private podcast where I have some different tools that you can do at home. I do have a few spots for one-on-one clients, so I do see people one-on-one. It's not prescriptive, meaning it's not going to be like every week for the next 20 years.
Right.
I'm here to get things done, and it works, so people do get things done.
Yeah, and I've heard nothing but good things about what you've gotten done with people in my life. So we will put all of that information in our show notes. So this has been an episode of Headspace by My Mama Done Told Me. If you want to connect with our family or give opinions on this conversation or reach out to Lora, if you don't look in our show notes and find her way to contact, you can contact us through our email address, and Lauren can tell you what that is.
It is mymamadonttoldmepodcast@gmail.com.
Yep, but we will have links to everything in our show notes.
Show notes. It's a thing.
Do you want to say show notes?
Show notes?
Yeah.
Okay, so show notes. Everyone talks about show notes.
Show notes. Oh yeah,
it
is
I
hard.
feel like it doesn't roll off the tongue as well as show notes.
So we say show notes.
And we kind of. Did you ever do the toy boat?
No.
Go ahead and try to say toy boat like as many times faster.
Toy boat.
See?
Oh yeah.
Immediately.
Toy boy.
Yeah. I don't know why.
Show notes.
Show notes. Yep. So we hope you keep your minds open and be kind to each other. Until next time.
Yes.
I'm Jeff. That's Lauren. And this is Laura. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Laura.
Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you for that.
Let me dab my
The sweat from my brow.
yeah.
Yeah, can we get makeup?
Hair and makeup, please.